What's up, everybody? Omega here, and I am joined by
Lady Omega.
And today we're going to talk about some of our favorite rare heroes that we like to use. We're going to go through each class here and talk about some good rare heroes that we think will help everybody in the game. Some of them for beginners and some of them for late game players. Just kind of help people out trying to figure out what rares they should use and work on. Everybody's going to have a different opinion on that. What works best for their style of gameplay. But these are the ones that we use and that we really like, that really jump out to us. So we're going to start with the Nomads. And some of these Orcish destroyers are new. The blue one, Gerbuck, if I'm saying it correctly, is very good. He's a good attacker. He deals damage to all enemies. He's an AoE hitter. He also has bleed, which means he is a dot hero, and he ignores 20% defense. He's a good one to use if you need an AoE attacker.
And he grants increased speed.
And he grants increased speed, as that's huge in this particular part of the meta. Speed is very important in just about every aspect of the game, I would say, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. Rhonda would be for sure.
Rhonda for sure is one a lot of people already know about. She is a fantastic hero, in my opinion. She actually recently did get a bit of a nerf, but she's still very good. One of the things I like about her is she has a speed lead, which is very helpful in Guild Wars. She also restores mana to all allies, which is really important. And she grants Board King to all allies for 3 turns, which means they'll get more tile matches, right?
Yes. Okay. Varvin, I used her in the beginning as a healer for one of the events that was up, so she's a good option if they haven't pulled that epic blue Marilda. I don't see her name, so I don't know her name. But I used her as a healer.
Yeah, so she heals all. She restores 15% of target's max HP to all allies and 65% for double effect. So what that means is she has a 65% to actually restore 30% target's HP to all allies. So if you need a healer in the beginning of the game and even intermediate, she's a good healer to have, wouldn't you think?
I do. I think the whole line there of those girls they're very situational, but very helpful in the beginning. I used about all these girls in the beginning. Great support heroes. Nessa grants Fortify. It's really helpful. Meredith, it feels like she makes your team just keep going and going and going with the healing and increased defense.
Yeah, a lot of people use Meredith. She restores 20% of target's max HP to all allies and grants increased defense to all allies for 3 turns. So she's a really good support hero. Speed is increased by 30 if at 100%
HP. She's really good combined with Emmett, in my opinion.
Yeah, they seem to work really well as a duo, especially in wars.
Yeah.
And I know you use those two a lot, and I see a lot of them on the war field. Other teams do like Emmett or other players do like Emmett and Meredith a lot as a duo. So those do work really well together.
I agree. Okay, our next one's the Desert Assassins.
Desert Assassins. These are all relatively new. This is a relatively new clan. We have a couple that we really like. I really like Maverick. And he is an attack leader everywhere. One thing that's interesting about him is he deals damage to a single enemy, 360% attack. That's pretty strong for a rare, and he gains increased speed for 3 turns. But really what makes him stand out to me is his passive. And his passive, he has a 100% chance to inflict decreased speed for 3 turns at the start of his turn on the enemy with the highest speed, and the mana gain is increased by 2. So in the beginning of the wave, the highest the enemy with the highest speed will automatically have their speed decreased, and I think that's really interesting because there's no other hero in the game that really does that.
Right. Especially a rare hero to pack that kind of punch.
Especially for a rare hero that can pack that kind of a punch and has a nice passive where it slows the other team down.
Right. My favorite so far is Jasm.
Jasm?
Sorry.
That's okay. We can cut that out.
My favorite so far is Jasm.
Yeah, so she really likes the purple one out of this class, and she's going to talk a little bit about why.
She performs 3 attacks, which is the meta is kind of changing to the dual attacks, I believe, because it seems like so many heroes they've come up with is like a double attack, a triple attack.
Yeah.
So for her to have a triple attack as a rare is, I like it. To 105% attack per single enemy and 75% chance to inflict poison on a single enemy for 2 turns. We love the dot heroes. They kind of burn down those revive teams. So,
yeah, I agree. The dot heroes are really important to have, especially in wars. They're really the best option against revives, as Lady Omega was saying.
And her passive has a mana gain increased by 2, which is rare to see. Because it's usually a mana gain increased by 1. So I think she gets an extra push right there, and her ACC is increased by 5 for every 10% HP she has. So the more build her high with HP and let her go at it.
Yeah, and she'll land more dots because her accuracy will be higher.
Right. It's just complimenting all the way around.
Yep, for sure. Next one is Desert Mages. And personally, the only one I really like out of this one is Alias. He is used in a lot of facets of the game. A lot of people have him. He's pretty well known as a rare. He has attack leader skill. He deals damage to all enemies, so he's an AoE hitter, and he has freeze, so he not only decreases their speed, but he actually can freeze all enemies, which is important to have.
When I first started playing, I hated him. I hated going against him. I really loved him. Like, I didn't understand where the freeze was coming from. So he's a really must-have. If you're new and you pull him, which you probably will, build him and use him.
Yeah, he's going to be helpful to all new players, and a lot of late-game players still use him too.
Right.
So,
I've seen some beast ones out there. There's a couple of these heroes that has potential, but we won't get into all that.
Yeah, for the most part, the rest of them aren't very good. And a couple of them are actually used basically for fusion to fuse other heroes.
Right.
All right, let's
on to Force Keepers.
All right, Force Keepers. So I personally don't know a lot about the half-elf rangers. Lady O really likes Norian.
And
Norian gains increased critical chance for 3 turns, deals damage to a single enemy for its 290% of attack when she's max skilled, which is high attack for a rare.
This is probably my most favorite about her.
Is her passive.
Yes.
So Dizzy and Shot, she actually has the ability to stun a hero for 3 turns if she deals critical damage to them.
Right. So build her high on critical damage.
High critical damage, and she'll stun some heroes for you.
Right. Important in Rare War.
Yeah.
I like Laurel too.
L'Oreal. So
she strikes twice.
She hits twice? Cool.
Inflicts poison on a single enemy for 2 turns, so she's a dot.
So she deals damage to a single enemy, 100% of attack, 100% chance to inflict poison on a single enemy for 3 turns. So yeah, she could be a really good one to use. A really nice passive, 100% chance to use her ability twice, her special ability twice, as Lady O was stating. Speed increased by 20, so she gets a little bit quicker throughout the battle. And a mana gain increased by 1 when she's max skilled. Mm-hmm. So she could actually be very useful in a lot of areas too.
She has been for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. The next one are Forest Dryads, and we know a couple of these are already pretty awesome.
Without a doubt, there's 2 in here that you have to have.
So the 2 that you really need to have is Inula. For one, she'll put all your enemies. She's an AoE sleep, and she'll put all your enemies to sleep. If you don't have her, we both recommend leveling her. Lady O actually has a couple of them that she uses.
Yeah.
In Guild Wars. She's just a great hero to have. She's used in high-level arena. You'll see her on some pretty high-level arena defenses, and she's just a fantastic hero.
But if you're a new player, you probably won't know this, but because I didn't know this, but don't hit a hero that you put in a sleep, and if you don't want them to remove the debuff.
Right.
Debuff.
That's a very good point. Very good point.
I would use an AoE with her and not understand why the sleep was going on.
Right. So
she's not ideal to use with an AoE.
Right. And the reason she's saying that is because basically the way sleep works, as Ladeja was saying, is that you can put your enemies to sleep until they get hit again. So the sleep is going to stay on them for the duration of the turns until they actually get hit. So what she's saying is if you use an AoE hitter, it's going to remove all the sleep. So it's kind of going to be counterproductive to that team. So that's not the right synergy to use with her.
Right. Her resistance is increased, and you want her to have high resistance so nobody can stun her and so she can keep going off.
Yeah, so it's good to have high resistance on her since she's primarily... You'll see her you'll use her on defense too, and that's one thing I do like about her. She's great for offense and defense. You'll see her on a lot of defenses, and since she's on defense quite often, you'll want that resistance to be as high as possible.
Hempe is another great hero that's a must-have.
Hempe is absolutely a must-have. She is an attack buffer to all allies for 4 turns. She buffs their defense to all allies for 4 turns. She's a fantastic hero to have. She increases her own speed based on how much defense she has. So if you build her with a lot of defense, she'll be faster. She's actually personally one of my quickest heroes that I have, and she's just a great hero to have. The other 3 are decent. Just it'd be personal choice on how you wanted to use them.
At least the red and the yellow. Poppy I haven't seen too many people use, but Nepta and Tulipa, are
very situational and can be used in certain situations and just based on your style of gameplay. But the Inula and Hempe are definitely the 2 that you want that class.
Okay.
Elven Rangers, I don't really use any of these. None of them really... They're basically food, in my opinion.
I feel like maybe Elijah has probably potential, maybe even Draenor, but it's so less situational that it's not even...
Not really worth. Now, if they get a buff in the future, we'll update you guys and let you know if any of them are going to be useful.
Right. I'm not even talking about the tree mages.
Yeah, the tree mages... We don't think either one of them are good. They were both kind of event heroes, and they were both very underwhelming, Amelia and Elsie. So, not very impressed with those 2. All right, moving on to Slavs. So here we have...
This group is really good, the Royal Guards.
Yeah, so the one I like is Emmett.
Yes.
I think everybody should have a fully built, fully maxed, and fully awakened Emmett.
He brings a big bang for a rare.
He does. He hits hard, deals damage to a single enemy, 310% of defense. So build him with high defense. He also has Taunt and Reflect for 4 turns.
That's huge.
So that's huge, and it's going to do a lot of damage to especially purple heroes in war.
Caleb's another good taunt hero to have in the beginning. If you're looking, I still see people 6-starring him. He's just good. I still believe in Caleb.
Yep. Caleb is also farmable, so you don't even have to summon him. He's farmable in the campaign. He's a good taunt hero. Gains spell shield for 4 turns, and has a nice passive addition. Defense is increased by 19% for every positive status that affects him. So if he's on the team with a buffer, he's going to get even more defense and really do well for you.
The
Caustic Mages?
Yeah, the mages, they have there's 4 of these that has potential to be great. And there's one that has the consistent potential to be a failure.
So there's 2 that we like that are really good. That the first one is going to be Drehos, and he is a reviver. And he is so important in rare war right now because of
duplicating those Nefri and Leo teams.
Right. For rare teams for sure. He is very important in Guild Wars. We're currently in kind of a revive res meta right now, so having him resurrect an ally with 10,000 HP is very good. Gains 50 mana whenever an ally is killed. Mana gain is increased by 1. So he's a great one to have out of that class. We both really like him. We both use him a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The next one is Bodan.
Yes, we both have him as well.
We both have him as well. He is a support hero, grants increased speed to all allies for 4 turns, and grants increased attack to all allies for 4 turns.
He's important for just attack. He does well with attackers and support heroes.
Yeah, so he's
Just
good
increases
on.
it,
He's
everything.
good just about on any team. His speed is increased for every 6. By 6 for every 10% missing HP as well.
In my opinion, I haven't really seen him be beneficial defensively.
Right.
But offensively, I've used him.
Yeah, he's mostly for your offense team to buff your team speed and their attack. He does really well in that respect.
Right. Stenko is the very one that I would eat a million times.
Yeah, so Stenko is important if you're a new player and a beginner in the game because you need him to fuse Guinevere. So that's really his only use in the game. So once you get a Stenko and you fuse your Guinevere, pretty much that's all he's going to do for you.
Right. Nature mage. I really like Rhonda.
Jadrana.
Yep.
Jadrana is really good. Actually, Lady O introduced me to her. She found her, so I give her all the credit on finding this hero. She is awesome. She has an attack leader skill everywhere, and Lady O is going to talk a little bit about what her special ability is.
Well, I really like AoE hitters. She does 25% damage to all heroes for caster's max HP, so the higher her HP, the more damage she's going to do. And she inflicts snare on all enemies for 4 turns. I am becoming a real big believer in snare. I really love it.
Snare as a status is very similar to Assassin's Mark. So it's going to do a lot of damage. It's going to eat away at their HP once you land the snare. And then it's going to do a lot of damage when it goes off. Is that correct?
Yes. Her passive has her ACC is increased by 15 for every dead enemy. So you can save on arties right here with, or artifacts, I'm sorry. Guys don't say arties. Yeah, and mana gain increased by 1, which is becoming something very normal in the game.
Absolutely. So the rest of them are still, the jury's still out on. There's a lot of testing and playing around that.
I have high hopes for
Irina, the red one?
Yes.
Never really taken a look at her. Another AoE hitter.
Inflict vulnerability.
And a 35% chance to inflict freeze for 1 turn.
It's not a big chance, but
that's not bad.
But her speed is increased. Her passive is her speed is increased by 6 for every living ally, and mana gain by 1.
So she has some potential. But for us, the best out of the bunch that we like is Jadrana for now. If any of you use any of these and like them and think they do really well, drop us a note in the comments and let us know and share the heroes that you like from those classes.
Yes.
All right, next is going to be Cossack Warriors.
Yes. All these girls, I really like these girls since they came out.
They're really good. The 2 that stand out for me are Rajana and Ladeja, who has stun. But all of them are very useful, wouldn't you say?
I do, especially as a new player. You see people leveling different ones.
Yeah.
So
Zalata, the red one, does a lot of damage. Actually, when I was a newer player, I used her against the green raid boss, and she did really well for me.
Yeah, she did. She had a high attack on the raid boss.
Yeah. Ladeja A lot of people use her. I see a lot of people using her and 6-starring her. She deals damage to a single enemy, 30% of caster's max HP, so she does damage based on HP. And the reason people like her the most is 100% chance to inflict stun on a single enemy for 3 turns.
And she's no pushover. She's hard to kill.
She is a hard to kill. She's an attacker that's based on HP, so she's super tanky. And if you're not careful, she'll stun you pretty quickly.
Yes.
So.
And she inflicts bleed.
Yep, so her passive is that she inflicts bleed. And 50% chance to inflict it again, and a 25% chance to afflict it a third time. So her bleed dots are cumulative, which is very helpful. So she does damage, she stuns, and she has the potential to put dots. So that's a pretty strong hero right there,
yeah.
I'd say.
When her special ability on an enemy is not affected by any positive statuses.
Correct.
So, and that mana gain by 1.
Mana gain
we said is becoming a regular.
They're becoming a regular and very helpful. Forest Witches.
Ursula, I would think, because of her bleed.
Yeah, a lot of people like her because of her bleed. And she not only inflicts bleed, but she deals damage to all enemies.
All enemies.
So
nice.
she's an AoE hitter, and she has dots, which is very important.
Yeah, and then you got...
Bruxa?
Yes, and the best thing about her is her leadership skill.
Right, so she has a speed leader skill.
Of 17. That is huge for
For
a rare
rare
hero.
Yeah, so she gives a speed lead to all yellow allies by 17, which is
an epic speed leader skill.
Which is right. Which is basically an epic speed lead skill, because usually for a rare speed lead it's only 9. So to have one that does 17 to all yellow heroes, which means you can use her with epics, you can use her with legendaries, and she's going to boost their speed by 17.
Which is why it's 17, is because it's narrowed down to just yellow heroes. So
Yeah.
her and Dragos would be really good together.
Yeah, so her and Dragos would work as a great team and really be a good synergy for those two.
I think so.
And she restores 85 mana to an ally, so she gives a mana boost to an ally, which is really important.
So while we're here, we might as well go ahead and touch on Custer.
Right, so good point. So the video's about rares, but there's a couple uncommons that Ladeja and I like a lot, and Custer is one of them.
I think everybody in the game knows about Custer, but if you're new, you're definitely not going to know about him.
Right, so Custer is one that you should absolutely have. I actually have 3 of them, and I know Ladeja's got a few. She's got 5 or 6 that are 5-star as well. But Custer is just an awesome uncommon hero. Like I said, most people that are late game or intermediate at this point already know about him, but if you're newer to the game, this hero is an absolute must. He restores 20% of targets to max HP to all allies, grants increased resistance to all allies for 3 turns, which is really, really good. Now, here's the kicker. This is what makes him really awesome. His speed is increased by 6 for every 10% res. So if you stack him with resistance, his speed is going to go so high that you're going to get the first turn in almost every battle that you're in. And I use him for... I use him for legendary teams in war. I'll throw him on there. He'll give me the first turn, and then it gives me a better chance of winning that particular battle. Now, every once in a while, you'll come across a swamp or something that's going to slow you down, or just a super, super fast defense in wars, and they're still going to get the first turn. But usually, I'd say 90% of the time, if you have a pretty fast Custer on your team, you're going to get the first turn.
Yeah. Yeah, he's really good.
All right, so let's move on to Iron Clans.
Yes. I used Nora in the beginning, and I know some people still use Nora for her decreased defense.
Right, so she has a 100% chance to inflict decreased defense on a single enemy for 3 turns, and deals damage to a single enemy 291% of attack. So she's a debuffer and an attacker all in one, which is really cool.
Yeah. And her attack is increased by 5% for every 10% ACC.
So she'll need the higher accuracy to be a good debuffer, and in turn doing that, she'll actually hit harder as an attacker.
Ketra, to me, she's kind of out of the meta, but I still think she can be really used. I still use mine sometimes in war.
Right, so she's a great hero for new players that need a really hard hitter.
Especially if you want to hit a raid boss.
Right, she's good at hitting raid bosses for new and intermediate players. She just does a lot of damage based on defense. She's a defensive leader, gains increased defense for 4 turns, deals damage to a single enemy, 403% of defense. So that's really a lot of damage all at once. So if you're newer to the game and you need a heavy hitter that's a red, she is definitely one that you're going to want to have. And as Ladeja was saying, we kind of use her every once in a while. We don't use her as much late game now, but she's still definitely a hero that's worth building and having on your roster for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
All right, so we're looking at Dwarven Footmen. And as far as I know, the one that we see most people using is going to be Godric.
Yes. We have a guildmate that swears by him as a tank. And he's even stated that he's going to win that battle for sure if he has him on his team.
Right, so he's an excellent tank. He has a defense leader skill. So he's going to buff the defense of your allies in every game mode by 20%.
Deals damage to a single enemy, 270% defense, and grants taunts for 3 turns. So, building him on defense. I love defensively built heroes.
Yeah, and he's a really good one to have. Super tanky for a rare. So if you need a rare tank, he is definitely one that you should look at. Restores 15 HP at the start of his turn.
Which is big.
So he basically heals himself. His defense is increased by 20, so he increases his own defense. So he's just going to sit there with taunt and be a tank and be super hard to kill in PvP or Guild Wars for sure.
Baldin. He is the baby Zarkon.
Oh, the half-one hunters, yes. So what this guy does is deals damage to all enemies, 175% of attack, and he has 50% chance to inflict poison for 3 turns, 3 times on all enemies. So,
and his attack is increased 75 for every 5% ACC. So, want to increase that accuracy and get his attack on up there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is going to help that bleed.
Yeah, for sure.
So, just a really good hero. I'm working on him right now. So, here's the main ones.
Mountain Priestesses.
Yes.
So, I would think that these are mostly revivers, and there were 3 that are excellent. Grima being the first one.
Grima being, I feel like, is the best one, without a doubt.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, she's got a speed leader skill of 13, I believe. Yep, 13 leader skill.
So good speed lead skill. Resurrects an ally without 8,000 HP, so she's a good reviver. And grants increased speed to an ally for 3 turns. She works really well with Drehos. You'll see her on defense with Drehos a lot.
Restores 8 mana to herself on the start of her turn for each dead ally. And mana gain increased by 1. Again.
Yes. So she is an awesome reviver.
She's my favorite reviver out of the girls.
The other one that we like is Gyrid. You'll see her on a lot of high-level defenses in Guild Wars, right?
Yes.
Resurrects an ally with 8,000 HP, and she grants Spell Shield to an ally for 3 turns.
Yeah, that Spell Shield can be a headache.
Really can. And she has a 100% chance to grant Spell Shield to an ally affected by most negative statuses for 3 turns if she has 100% mana at the start of her turn. Mana gain increased by 1.
Yeah, she's good. She's good to have. She's definitely worth building.
And then another good reviver to have out of those is Turrid. And she was probably the 3rd best in my opinion, but also very helpful. She has an HP leader skill, so she's going to boost the HP of all your heroes in a guild battle.
Make them stronger.
And she resurrects an ally with 7,500 HP, restores 15 mana to an ally, and 50% chance to grant increased attack to an ally for 3 turns. So she has a lot of support abilities that she does other than just the resurrection.
Right. On the start of her turn, she has a 100% chance to grant increased attack to all allies for 3 turns if she has 100% mana.
So those are the 3 out of that class that we really like, that we think would really boost your roster. The next one is Orc Piercers. For me personally, the only one I like is Xena.
Yep, for the red raid boss. She's just a good sniper.
She hits really hard for a rare, gains increased attack for 4 turns, deals damage to a single enemy, 378% of attack. So that's a lot of damage.
Note, she is very smushy.
She is squishy. She's basically what we call a glass cannon.
Yes.
But she's going to do a ton of damage.
She is.
So she, out of those, is probably the best one.
Her passive is important. Her attack is increased by 8% for every positive status effect affecting her. So she works really well with Strabog.
And when she's max skilled, her mana gain increases by 3.
Right.
Which is pretty high.
That's huge for a rare.
So those are the ones you want. Orc Defenders. And I love me some Zonic.
Yes, you do.
He is very good. In my opinion, he's the best out of all of the Orc Defenders. He does a ton of damage based on defense, and he's also a resistance leader for guild battles. He deals damage to a single enemy, 370% defense, and he grants Fortify to all allies for 3 turns. Now, if you don't know what Fortify is, that means once he puts Fortify on all of your allies on your team, any special that they are hit with is going to do 30% less damage. So that's very important to have. And he's got a really nice passive. Resistance of all allies is increased by 15 if he has 100% mana. And his mana gain is increased by 1. Mm-hmm. So Zunug is, in my opinion, the best out of those. Don't really know too much about all of them because they're still relatively new. But I haven't seen many of them used other than Zunug in the game so far. Orc Marauders.
Well, we know for a fact Mahalagan Gorag.
Right. So Gorag is great for the yellow raid boss.
Yes.
Does a lot of damage. Does damage to himself, but the less HP he has, the more damage he does. And he ignores 40% defense, which is super high for a rare.
And as T-Bone showed, and Kiki obviously shows regularly, he pairs very well with Etro.
Yes, so he's one that works well with Etro, who's a purple epic hero. If you use him paired with Etro against the yellow raid boss, you're going to be doing a ton of damage, which T-Bone pointed out in one of his earlier videos. It's just a great pairing.
Yeah. And then you got Mahog, which is... Gosh, he's so good. I still use him almost every war.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Gains increased defense for 3 turns, deals damage to a single enemy, 332% of defense. So he hits hard based on defense.
He does.
So we like those tanky hitters, meaning if you use them, they're going to do a lot of damage as an attacker, but they're also going to be hard to kill because they're tanky and their damage is based on high defense.
Yes. His attack is increased by 40 for every 100% defense he has.
Right, which is good because that means his tile damage is going to do more.
Right. He's really good. And then he's got the defense leadership skills. So.
Yeah. So those are the 2 that we really like out of the orcs.
Vignan was used by a couple of people to just get through things because he has the infinity.
Yeah. The invincibility.
Invincibility.
I think is what it is. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then the grunts are some of my favorites.
There are so many. There are so many of them that are good. Varnag is an excellent damage dealer.
He is a Death Crusader all for himself. He is just so good. I love him.
Lady O used Varnag for a very long time against the red raid boss and still does in some instances. He does a ton of damage.
Grants increased attack for 3 turns, deals damage to a single enemy for 86% attack.
Yeah, so he's just going to smash and do damage.
And then his I really liked him because I didn't have to pair Esmeralda with him because he did it himself.
Yeah, he gives himself an increased critical damage for 6 turns at the start of each wave. And again, that's a passive, guy, so that means you don't have to fire him up or anything for that to happen. It's just going to automatically happen on its own.
Which makes it so good.
Next one is going to be Umug. He's an HP leader everywhere. Deals damage to a single enemy, 346% of attack.
100% chance to inflict decreased speed on a single enemy for 4 turns, and that's super important.
Right, because it's going to slow your enemies down, and he's going to do a ton of damage to them.
Right, 35% chance to use a special ability twice.
So any hero that you have that has a chance of going 2 times is going to be a good hero to hold on to.
Yes.
Next one is Psylog. Ladeja has a really good one. She likes him a lot.
Yeah, he's an AoE that has a chance to, he does 285% damage based on an attack and ignores 20% defense down. Then he has 50% chance to gain 100% mana at the start of his turn.
So meaning he could just go again right off the bat and kill an enemy pretty quickly.
And it could be a lifesaver in some cases.
And then the other one in this class that I really like is Orgac. And you'll see a lot of people use him in wars. He has a speed leader everywhere, which anytime you can get a speed leader, it's good to have. Increases speed of allies by 9 in all game modes. He deals damage to all enemies, so he's an AoE hitter. He has 60% chance to inflict decreased defense on all enemies, and he has 60% chance to inflict stun on all enemies for 2 turns. So he can do the damage, decrease their defense, and stun them all if he has high accuracy and high attack. So he is a good hero to have for sure.
Yes.
Recovers 3.5% HP whenever a negative status is inflicted by his special ability. So for every debuff he puts on the enemy, his HP is going to grow.
Very good hero. So we spoke about 4 out of 5 of those heroes. So it's just a very important class right there.
Yeah.
Not really a class, a category.
Yeah, for almost all the heroes in that class are good. All right, so let's move on to the Empire.
I love the Empire just because of their name.
Good name, a lot of good heroes, a lot of good rares. The Empire could arguably have the best rare heroes of any class in the game.
Field medics. There's still various people I see use different ones, but the ones that are going to stand out and be the top, at least 3, is Santos, Richard, and Benedict.
Correct. I agree 100%. So Santos is a very good support hero and healer. He restores 18% of target's max HP to all allies and grants increased attack to all allies for 4 turns. Now, Ladeja uses hers a lot.
Yes, a guildmate, Mark, taught me to use him with the raid boss, the green raid boss.
Yep, so she uses him against the raid boss and always does really well and does a ton of damage because he's a great support hero to have against that raid boss.
Yes,
right?
And rifts, I use him on at least 2 of my rift teams.
Yep. So he has a resistance passive that his resistance is increased for every negative status affecting him. And then the next one that we really like
Richard
is going to be Richard. He's a great healer.
Leech therapy.
It's a really cool special ability name. I like the name. Restores 19% of target's max HP to all allies. So when you're facing enemies that have a lot of HP, his heal is going to be based on how much HP they have. So that's really cool to have. And he grants spell shield to all allies for 3 turns. He's really great against Inula defenses because if he goes off and puts a spell shield up, she's not able to sleep anybody.
Right.
And he's also a healer. 5% decreased damage taken for every positive status affecting him. So he's just a really, really cool hero to have, and I use him everywhere.
Yes, he can be very annoying if you're going up against him.
Yeah, he's annoying to face on defense, and he's awesome to use on offense. If you don't have one, we recommend building him.
Benedict, the baby Guinevere.
Benedict, the baby Guinevere is what a lot of people call him, and he Restores 24% of target's max HP to all allies, so he heals. And removes 1 negative status from all allies. So he actually is a cleanser and a healer all in one. Very useful to have. Really good passive. Defense is increased by 5 for every 300 HP. So he's also
that HP up.
So he's also pretty tanky.
Yes.
I agree.
I love Benedict. I love those. 3 of those guys at least. Love them. Okay, this is the Twisted Dwarfs are some more of our favorites. At least 2 of these are.
Yeah. So we both love Altan and Floki.
We still use both of them.
Right. So these are some rares that you'll use not only as a beginner, but all the way through to the end of the game. Not the end of the game, but until late game. And
you will use Floki for the RB, for the blue RB, until you pull a Nika.
Yeah. And I used him for a long time until I did get a Nika. He grants spell shield to all allies for 4 turns. And it grants increased speed to all allies for 4 turns.
He's a beast.
He's a beast. Defense is increased by 30 for every 10 speed. So build him tanky and fast, and he's really going to help your team out. We recommend everybody have a Floki on their roster for sure.
Everybody needs a Floki. Everybody needs a Ultan. He was my farmer for the first 6 months of the game,
Yeah.
and he's still on my Rift team.
Altan is a great rare hero to have. Everybody should know about him. If you're newer to the game, definitely you should have a 6-star, fully maxed Altan in your roster.
His special has a 100% chance to inflict decreased defense on all enemies for 3 turns. Deals damage to all enemies 18% of caster's max HP. Want to build that HP up.
Yep. So he's going to do defense down on all allies, as she was saying, and then he's going to hit them hard with damage based on his HP. So it's really cool.
It's passive. Healthy body, healthy mind.
And accuracy is increased by 5% for every 3,200 HP. So the more HP he has, the more damage he's going to do, the more accuracy he's going to have to land his decreased defense.
Absolutely. He's just a great hero.
So those are the 2 out of that class that we really recommend as must-haves.
Ambitious sorcerers. We've recently talked about a couple of these.
Right, so we did a couple.
Navarre and Arcanus.
Yeah, so we did some videos on the 2 that we really liked. The other 3 have some potential and can be used in certain areas, but the best out of these 2 are Navarre and Arcanus.
Yes.
Navarre is an AoE attacker, deals damage to all enemies, 210% of attack, and he inflicts vulnerability on all heroes.
For 3 turns.
For 3 turns. And he has a 25% chance to inflict freeze on all enemies for 2 turns.
Yeah. It's
and
not a big chance, but...
Yeah, it may seem like a lower chance, but I can tell you when I'm using him in a rare guild battle, there is no better feeling to see him hit everybody, decrease their vulnerability, and freeze a couple of the heroes in the process.
His passive is really what makes him special, is the speed increased by 20 and a mana gain increased by 1.
Yeah, so another hero that boosts his own speed and will be quicker in the long run for you.
Yes. Arcanus. We love those dot heroes again. You found Arcanus.
I did. He is
a baby.
Lurkar. Yeah, we call him Lurkar's little brother. 100% to inflict burn on all enemies for 1 turn, 2 times. And he deals damage to all enemies at 200% of attack.
It's huge.
That's huge.
His passive is damage increased by 8% for every negative status effect affecting an enemy. So the more he lands his fire, the more damage he's going to do. Attack increased by 20%, mana gain increased by 1.
Yeah, and that automatically happens. You don't have to fire anything up. It's just going to happen because it's a passive, and I use him a lot against revived teams.
Yes. The Grumpy Dwarfs is another line of our favorites. The only one we do not use, and this one is
Bjorn.
Bjorn.
So if you're looking at these, we've got Tharlik, Olaf, Varfus, Bjorn, and Maverick. We love 4 out of 5. We think all of them are helpful.
Well, I love 3 and like 4.
Okay. She loves 3 and like 4. Tharlik, I really use him a lot. He does a ton of damage, 320% of based on his defense, and he has a 100% chance to inflict stun on an enemy for 3 turns. So I use him a lot in Guild Wars. I like him a lot. He gains increased defense for 8 turns at the start of each wave. So his defense by his passive is automatically boosted for 8 turns, and his mana gain is increased by 2.
Which is double, comparably to
Yes.
what other ones usually are. Ogloff, oh my gosh, he is such a headache taunt when you first start playing the game. Like, it's like his taunt never goes off.
Yeah, his taunt
Or
never
it
goes
never leaves.
Right, yeah. He has defense leader ability, increases all defense of all allies in guild-related battles. And he gains taunt for 6 turns. So
6 turns is major.
Yeah, so as Lady O was saying, it feels like it never ends with his taunt unless you can debuff it. But 6 turn stun is huge. And you only need to skill him up 3 times to get that max 6 turn.
And he recovers 20% HP at the start of his turn.
Right.
That's his passive.
Yeah, so he just keeps healing himself, and he has taunt for 6 turns. So he's super hard to kill when you're using rares against him.
Yeah, he's just a headache. He's good for you, but it could be bad for you if you're facing him.
Right, absolutely. And Lady O's favorite out of these is going to be Farfus.
I love him so much because he's got a 6 turn stun. That is huge.
Yep, 6 turn stun is amazing.
Deals damage to a single enemy, 34% of caster's max HP. That's fantastic. I like HP based heroes. That's their attacks based off of that. 100% chance to inflict stun on a single enemy for 6 turns. Inflicts decreased speed and decreased defense on himself for 6 turns. That's kind of a bummer, but a 6 turn stun is worth it to me. So
absolutely.
And it's headbutt. I really like that it's called that.
All right, and his passive?
Crippled toughness. Okay, defense is increased by 250 for every negative status affecting him, and mana gain increased by 2.
So he's an awesome one to have, and he's great for guild battles for sure.
He is. I love him.
The other one we like is Maverick. I don't use him as much late game now, but when you're fairly new to the game, or even, like I said, an intermediate player, he's a great one to have. I have a video of him earlier on my channel that I did, I think, last year sometime. He deals damage to a single enemy, 42% of caster's max HP, and ignores 20% of defense. So he does a ton of damage. Yes. He's got a decent passive too.
To be a little guy.
Yeah, to be a little dwarf, he does a lot of damage. His resistance increased by 26% on his passive. Yeah. So those are the ones that we really like out of that class.
Yes. My favorite visually pleasing class is the Dark Followers.
All right, so we're looking at the Dark Followers, which Lady O is a big fan of. And let's take a look at the first group of rares that we have for them is going to be the Elven Assassins.
Yes.
The one that I like, and for me personally, the Elven Assassins have been around a long time. They were introduced in the game when I started, I believe. And the only one that I personally feel is useful is Lithai.
Same.
And it's because he does so much damage as a green rare. I use him just about every Guild War.
Yes, he hits hard.
Deals damage to a single enemy, 376% of attack, and ignores 20% defense.
And it's called Backstab.
Which is pretty cool. Dexterity. His passive, his speed is increased by 7.5%. Deals an additional 20% damage to targets below 20 HP. So if you have targets that are almost dead and they're down low HP, he's almost always going to one-shot those targets.
He's going to backstab them.
He's going to backstab them. Lantern Healers.
RS.
RS is probably the best one out of these.
He's the healer for sure. Like he's
restores 20% of caster's current HP to all allies. Grants increased resistance to all allies for 3 turns. And gains 7 mana whenever he deals damage with gemstones. The other one that is decent is Aladdis. Restores 70% of target's current HP to an ally. He does soul replenish, has a grant increase attack, grant increase critical damage, and his passive is he recovers 35 mana whenever using his special ability on a target with 100% HP. Yeah. There are some players that like Noctis and Cabal. Personally,
I'm not impressed by them.
I'm not impressed by them. They don't do much for me. Again, some people like Noctis and Cabal, but at this point, I've not really been convinced that they're really going to be used or useful in beginner or late game.
Right. I agree.
All right, moving on to our newest family in class is the Far East. Experienced herbalists.
Oh, yeah. I personally like Sip.
All right. Has a 100% chance to resurrect an ally with 1 HP. So he's probably, out of this class, he's probably one of the more useful ones.
He'd be better paired with a taunt.
He would be good with a taunt. His passive is defense is increased by 25% if more than 3 allies are alive, and his mana gain is increased by 1. The only other one, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Pairing with the taunt, so it keeps that ally that he just resurrected with that 1%, because that 1% isn't much.
Right.
So you want to protect it.
Now, the other one that I used quite a bit when they first came out was Yawn. 100% chance to grant increased attack to all allies, so he buffs them. He gives them all Board King, and he gives them all Spell Shield too. So he's a good support hero. In the beginning, if you have him, he may be useful to you in a lot of ways, but him and Sip are probably the best two of this class, I would think.
Yeah, some people use pot too. I don't know. I don't have much experience with those guys.
The light archers, none of them really stand out to me. I don't have any of them that I've built or that have seemed very useful. Any thoughts on those? Azumi?
Yeah. I think probably this one probably has the most potential.
Increases the speed of all allies by 9 in all game modes. And deals damage to a single enemy, 285% of attack, and 100% chance to inflict status block on a single enemy for 3 turns.
I think the status block is super important.
Yeah, that's becoming more important in the game, the status block, but it keeps all those other support heroes from buffing some heroes that you're facing.
You've got a speed litter skill of 9.
Yeah, so she has some potential.
Right. Okay. Now, while we're here,
let's take a look at the other uncommon that we like a lot.
Most people already know, but Pan is a savage.
Pan is fantastic against the blue raid boss. For an uncommon hero, she does a ton of damage. Now, I will say that you have to have some really good artifacts on her, but don't let that discourage you from building her or using her if you are kind of newer to the game or a beginner player.
She's definitely worth it.
She is definitely worth it. She does a ton of damage, deals damage to a single enemy, 445% of attack, and ignores 20% defense. Now, here's what I really like about her as well, is her passive. She has 40% chance to use her special ability twice if only 1 enemy is alive. So that means when you're facing the blue raid boss, he's obviously the only enemy alive, so she's going to have a 40% chance of going twice and doing more damage. So that is the uncommon that we like, and
that wraps up the whole rares with the...
That wraps it up for us. Those are the rares that we like, that we think will help you out in a lot of areas of the game.
And obviously, opinions are going to vary. The meta's going to change. But ultimately, these are heroes that's worth keeping.
Yeah, so these rares that we talked about today are the ones that we think are going to help you the most and that are worth keeping. If you have any thoughts on other rares that are working really well for you, that you think are good with certain synergies or different aspects of the game, let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your opinions on some of them.
That's right.
Once again, Omega and Lady Omega.
Like and subscribe. Peace out.
Thank you. Peace out.